Well, hello, everybody. Hope you're all doing well this afternoon or this morning or this evening, whatever time of the day it might be you're watching this. If you're watching it live, then it's morning, almost afternoon. Hope your week's starting off to be good. Before I go any farther, I just want to thank all the veterans for their service. I, for one, am very grateful for the sacrifices you make for our country, the sacrifices you make to your family, your children, your wives, your parents, to make America free and beautiful as it was built, as it was supposed to be, um, according to the foundings of our country, a land of free people, not a land of oppressed people. So I, for one, appreciate every last one of you and the sacrifices you have made. I just want to put that out there. And my wife is the same way, and my family's the same way. So they're just not here to tell you that. Today we're going to continue this. Hey Keith, hey Alex, glad to see you both here. Alex, I know you were in the military. Thank you, bud. We're going to continue with chapter 6, the G-D word. The G-D word. The dash is the O for God. And we're going to be talking a little bit about. It's step 3, the third step, but it's a very important step. And whether you belong to any kind of 12-step program or not, I think everybody can relate to this. And I will tell you that Bill and Bob, actually, but Dr. Bob is the one that did a lot of the writing, but I'm reading that book called The James Club. And they're brilliant. And the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous was definitely divinely guided. It's definitely Holy Spirit led. What's happened over the course of the last 70 plus years, almost 80 years, is that man, as always does, has screwed it up. And it's just amazing. So these steps were I worked them. And look, if you don't belong to the 12-step program, that's fine. But it's for a lot of people, in fact, for probably tens of million people, these steps have worked and changed lives. So many people. Well, I'll get into a little bit more, but so don't let the title, the third step, fool you. Just have an open mind. As with anything in life, the more open-minded and willing we are to learn, the better off we're going to be. If you're closed-minded and you say, I know it all, well, good luck. Just let me know how that works for you for the rest of your life. Okay? Because most, the granddad, the godfather, the godmother, the god, whatever you want to call it, of all 12-step programs was Alcoholics Anonymous and the Oxford Group and Dr. Bob and Bill W. back in 1935. They are the one that was divinely guided. Every single step is biblically based. And in fact, the entire program of AA is based on the book of James, 1 Corinthians 13, and the Sermon on the Mount. You're going to hear me say that a lot. This book is phenomenal, how scriptures were paraphrased into the big book in a lot of different ways. And I know that God is a very, very touchy subject for a whole lot of people, and I understand it. It was for me too, and actually you're the ones I love to sit down and talk with. It's my favorite people, the ones that really struggle with knowing that God, that there's such a loving, kind, caring God, why all the hate and killing in the world? That's a subject for another day. Remember that step 3, it's step 3 for a reason. And the steps in Alcoholics Anonymous are, let's remove all programs from this conversation. Let's just say that the 12 steps are numbered 1 through 12 for a reason, and a very, very good reason. The first step is we admitted we were powerless over blank, and our lives have become unmanageable. They say that's the only step that you need to get perfect, because until we can admit that we are powerless, well, wait a minute. I built $1 million business. I had all this wealth. I had all this. I had all that. How can you tell me I'm powerless? I did it all. Well, yeah, maybe you did the work, but believe me, there's a power behind you that helped you get it. But We have to admit that we're powerless and that our life has become unmanageable. And these steps are designed, especially the steps that I went through, are very much designed to make it very clear that you're powerless and your life is very, very unmanageable. So that's the first step. That's not doesn't talk about God, doesn't do any of that, because I want nothing to do with God. Then you got step two, came to believe that power, capital P power, greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Capital P power is God. But they don't use God yet, because most of the rooms of AA are filled with people that had a real hard time with God because of what people did to them. So now you're getting to this power. What is this power? And does the power really exist greater than myself? Well, yeah, it does. And if you're in denial about that, then I would suggest you spend some time outdoors in the high country. Look at some of God's beauty. Look at the trees. Look at the clouds, the sunsets, the sunrises. I mean, for God's sake, you look at a sunrise and sunset, there's no two alike. It's a master artist at work. So how can you believe there's not a power greater than that? So you look at the Milky Way. Just look at, if you're in the Coachella Valley, look at the mountains that surround you. Take the time to watch an airplane coming in against the backdrop of the San Jacinto Mountains, a big jet. And you'll see just how great and how powerful things are. There's got to be something greater than us. I used to look at the Milky Way when I was camping up in the Sierras, go, there's got to be something bigger than me. So you're learning. Step two, we came to believe. Just maybe there is something greater. And then you come to step three. Step three, remember, it involves making a decision. We made a decision. We just made the decision to turn our will and our life over to the care of God as we understand God. Now, I'm going to talk about that as we understand God next week. It's a very important subject that needs to be talked about. So I'll be talking about that next week. So step three, we came to believe, we turn our will and our life over to the care of God as we understand God. So he's guiding you along back to this path, and you're surrounded by people that are like-minded, that come from the same background you do, different traumas in their life, but we all had traumas, and a lot of it involves the church, okay? So the question arises, is it really possible to know who God is? Well, for myself, I'm going to say yeah. And especially over the course of the last couple of years, when I ride across America and my stepping up in ministry at church, and it's very, very possible to know who God is. He is real. And even before I got back involved in the church and in ministry like this, in my first year of sobriety, I would meditate. That conscious contact with God was real. There was times when I come out of a meditation going, I'd have to look in the seat next to me because it was that strong of a presence. Okay. Think what you want. Randy, you're crazy, you're out of mind. Maybe you're still getting a little high or whatever. Well, I wasn't, and you have a right to think that way, but believe me, when you experience it, you'll never want to go back. A lot of people don't believe in God, and that's okay. Like I say, I used to feel the same way. Look at being abused the way I was abused, for the years I was abused in the church by born-again Christian parents, a deacon of the church, and a member of the choir, and then the pastor of the church just pretty much co-signing what my stepfather was doing to me. And then my youth minister that taught my youth pastor that we were good friends, taught me how to snow ski. We used to go surfing together all the time. We did a lot of stuff together. And he called me up when I was 18 and says, Randy, check in on me. And I said, hey, Homer, I just need some time to think. I'm confused right now. So I have one favor to ask of you. And this is what all people that follow God should be able to do without a problem. Just don't quit being my friend, Homer. And he slammed the door in my face and walked away from me. That's when I said, if this is what God and the church is all about, then I'm done with it. And notice who it was that did it. And notice who I said, God and the church. God didn't do it to me, man did. Okay? And people want to blame man's actions on God. And the enemy, the devil, Satan, whatever, dark side, whatever you choose to call it, he'll use other people to turn us against God. Hey, here's my granddaughter. Say hi, Emerson. Say hi.
Who am I saying hi to?
To the whole world.
What? Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay. The dogs
Okay.
got to the toilet paper.
That's all right. I'll get it in a minute. I've got to finish this. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I'm watching my granddaughters today doing grandpa duty. I love them. Yeah. So the church, people always want to blame it on people, and God gives man free will. Okay. So I had my back was turned against God in the church for a long time, and I had to do some deep searching, and I realized that God's always been with me. I will tell you this though, right? I religiously, and I hate the word religion, but I religiously avoid anyone who insists that God is vengeful, angry, or only likes one group of people. That's hogwash. And that I'll go into more of that next week with the understanding of God, okay? Because that was my conception for many, many years. And it's a lie. It's a false prophet. It's not true. Okay? Because all that, when they start talking about how vengeful God is and angry and how he doesn't like people, hey Paul, that's the work of man. It's written all over it. That's what you call religion. That's where man steps in and starts twisting things. That's where you go back to spiritual abuse, because man starts twisting things and make you think the way he thinks, and to put the fear of God into you, and to scare you into believing and doing the things they want you to do. Okay. I've had plenty of versions of man's. I've had plenty of man's versions of God's along my way, right, when I was a child. And today, it's a God of my understanding. You can hear that from me, but I'm going to go over it again next week. To me, that God is omnipresent. He radiates love and compassion to everybody. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what race you are, what color you are, it doesn't matter, none of that. You know, it doesn't matter what you've done. I mean, I have people that have done some terrible things in their life, including pedophiles. Now, with a pedophile, I don't like them. I don't like what they did. I don't want nothing to do with them, but I'm to love them as Christ loved the church. Remember, sin's a sin. It doesn't matter if it's pedophilism or if you stole money from your piggy bank. It's a sin. A sin is a sin. God doesn't see one sin greater than the other. That being said, I'll talk to this one pedophile that I was involved with, and I actually would give him a hug and tell him I loved him, because I understood him. What he did was wrong, and I watched him like a hawk around kids, believe me. But I got to know who he was and why he did the things he was, and he was just as broken as a lot of people are. But he was so enthralled in what happened to him, and there was no God was completely absent from his life. He didn't know any better. He's paying for his consequences. His consequences have come due, and he's paying. He's paying the Grim Reaper. But you know what? I still have to love him. There's other people that I deal with that have done some bad things. I don't look at what they did, because that's not what Jesus would do. He don't care about that. I look at them today. What are they trying to do for their life today? See, but in the past, that wasn't good. Hey, David, in the past, the God I grew up with, I mean, that's why I went out the way I went out when I was 18. Hell, I'm going to hell anyways. I'm going to go out and have fun, you know? So today, the people that I really surround myself with, the community of people that I have, are people that radiate the love and compassion that I choose to look up today. Those are the people that I choose to look up today. The people that radiate the love and compassion. They're not perfect. I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes. And I have a very critical and discerning eye because of what happened to me as a child. And God's working on that with me, because nobody's perfect. My job is only to love them, not to judge them. I can tell you this also, that hold on, sorry about that. I can tell you this also, that without God, my higher power, where I'm at today would have never happened. Never, ever would happen. It's imperative in step 3, and I'll go into that journey a little bit more next week. And I'll explain the importance of it. But without God in your life, this journey of recovery and the things you got to walk through and the things you got to look at and the things you got to face sometimes can be excruciatingly painful. But until you do look at them, until you do walk through them, until you do talk about them, you're going to live with them for the rest of your life. And they're going to eat at you, and they're going to come up at inopportune times. And it's inevitable. It happened to myself and so many people that I work with. It's happened to that. Why, Randy? Has my life been going along, just kind of cruising? Things have been happening, built a business. It seems like it's good. Yeah, we have problems. And then one day, out of nowhere, you get blindsided and all hell breaks loose and there ain't no turning back because it's inside of your head. I had a conversation with a gentleman the other night. Why do we, if God forgives us of our sins, why do we have to tell any man about them? Well, I could say that's a legitimate question. And for some of us that, like for this gentleman, he's a very godly man, and I understood where he was at, but the more I talked to him, the more he understood what I was saying. And it's like, we can confess it to God. And I have plenty of people ask me, well, I confess it to God, that's good enough. Well, let me know how that works for you in about 6 months to a year. And inevitably, those people that don't complete their so-called 5th step, where they sit down and talk about what they're confessing with another human being that they can trust, relapse. It's inevitable. There's people that are much wiser than me, that have been around a lot longer than me, that will tell you if you do not complete your 5th step, the chances of you staying sober are slim and none. Why? Because you still have those secrets in your head. But I admitted them to God. Okay, you did. Then why is it still bothering you? Why is it still chewing? Why are you still carrying around the shame? So we have to have that higher power, okay? The one thing that I know is that spirituality, well, I think it's at the front of this chapter, that spirituality is for people that have gone to hell or been to hell. Religion is for people that are afraid of going to hell. Okay, I've lived hell. Most addicts I know, and alcoholics, and you don't have to be an alcoholic or an addict. Most people that come into recovery, whatever it is, they've lived in hell. They know what it's like to live in hell, and it's not fun. It's a constant state of chaos and fear and confusion. Constantly. Spirituality, now we're walking with God, a God that loves for us, cares for us, and has forgiven us. I'm not afraid of going to hell. I've lived it for way too many times. So we are hardwired as spiritual beings, because when the Bible says God made us in the image of God, both man and woman made us in the image of God. The image of God is a spiritual part of us. The spiritual being is that image that the Bible's talking about. We're spiritual beings having a human experience, not human beings having a spiritual experience. Okay? It's a big distinction right there. Man will take religion and twist it however they want. The Bible, I say this very respectfully. You that know me know where I'm at, but man will twist the Bible to make his own religion. And a lot of men still live in the Old Testament. There's a big difference between the Old and the New Testament. In the laws mainly, okay? Human beings, we have always needed some kind of spirituality, always. Sometimes some people take it in the form of science, some nature, or some, it's a religious deity, Everybody has to have some form of spirituality. They're seeking it constantly. I think that unless you're spiritually dead, which a lot of people probably are, you're constantly seeking some kind of spiritual connection. It could be one of the 3 I mentioned. It could be more than that. It could be all of them. Here's the one thing that I found out. Whatever that spirituality is, when we start embarking back on that journey that's going to take us back to the wholeness of who God created us to be, that true spiritual being, the calling he has in our life, we need the kind of help that human beings just aren't capable of giving. No human power is capable of helping us. They're capable of guiding us by example. But until we get connected back with God, this journey is really hard. You're gonna constantly be seeking to fill the hole in your soul. I know I did. I know a lot of people did. And a lot of people still are, that are even in churches and in AA, because they don't have that real connection. I can remember walking into AA the first time, and what I heard was people in AA, they were talking about God, and how pastors, priests, and churches had wounded them in much the same way that they wounded me. I'm not alone. You're not alone. This journey is filled with millions and millions of people that what they want to do, because the enemy is very devious and very deceptive, is to use human beings to turn other human beings against God. All right? Okay? So the churches, the people, the priests, the pastors, they're the ones that are doing it to us, not God. And we have to realize that. The churches are a hospital. They're an ER for the broken, for those that want to get help. I had to come to a realization that it wasn't God that did these things to me. In fact, when I did my journey of recovery and I started journeying back through my life, I saw where God was. And that's the journey I love to take people on. Because where we think he wasn't, he was right in the middle of it, keeping us safe and protecting us. Most of these people in AA were talking about the exact same kind of experiences I had with pastors, priests, and God. And they were happy about it. They weren't upset no more. You know, and here's the deal. If you take this journey, it's not an easy journey. It's a hard journey. And you're going to push and you're going to shove. I pushed and I shoved. And this ain't true. And, you know, this can't be. And what about this? What about that? I mean, I looked at Taoism. I looked at Hinduism. I looked at Buddha. I looked at it all. Because I wanted to know what God was. And the reality is there's one God. Buddhism, Taoism, Hinduism, all that. What I saw on that, the one common denominator with all of it was the Ten Commandments. They all live by the Ten Commandments. I don't, you know, there's people that, you know, they don't, I won't say nothing bad about those religions or beliefs, you know. I looked at them, they helped me for a while, but I came back to God, right? I look at people as the way they live. Are they acting like God? Are they acting like Christ-like more than what religion they believe in? And I let my actions guide their choices around me. I know this is kind of a hard thing to understand, but I just can't judge people that are in another religion. Do I agree with it? No. Do I see the damage it does? Absolutely. I've seen horrendous damage done by Mormons, by Seventh-day Adventists. I mean, for Baptists, by every religion, by Christians, by it's there. It doesn't matter. But they're missing God. It doesn't matter what religion. If it's missing God, then they're missing the whole point. See, what I found too, these people in AA, they were most of them were happy, but they weren't the fake happy. They weren't the fake happy like my mother and stepfather were. I could put this good. Now there are some in AA, there are still some in church today. It's a fact of life, okay? But like my mother and stepfather, they were really good at the facade of putting on this good Christian people when they're around other Christians. But the minute we got in the car to go home or walk behind our closed doors, all hell broke loose, and it was like living in hell. There was good times. I'm not going to say it was like constant hell, because that would be a lie. There was good times, but the bad far outweighed the good. Now look at that. Again, I want you to understand. People are people. And people are going to do what they want to do because they live on self-will. And there's nothing we can do about that. I made the choice in 2007 to step back in the church after 38 years of not being in it. I made the choice. And I was very cautious. And I was ready to run. But they didn't give me no reason to run. They loved me until I could love myself again. They helped me love myself further along. They didn't judge me. They met me where I was at, which is something I never experienced in a religion, in a religious, I won't even say that, in a church. Okay. Another thing that really, really helped me out was my counselor, Betty Ford. I knew I had to meet, it was actually my spiritual counselor, Greg. He was very gentle. He had a very gentle spirit about him, very calm, very quiet. You got to understand that as abuse survivor, sexual abuse survivor, or any kind of abuse survivor, trauma survivor, it can be incredibly, incredibly difficult to make that first step and start trusting somebody, especially with some stuff that you are holding on to that you need to get rid of it. And it's not exactly kind words. It can be very toxic, in fact. But again, if we go back to what would Jesus do? Walking through the field, listening to you, just rip it all out. This Greg guy was an epitome of what's, I'm not on this, that's the correct word. This Greg, my spiritual counselor, was exactly that. Exactly that. It's painful. It's really painful to take this journey, but it's also necessarily. Okay? We need another person in our life to truly heal. Somebody that we can trust. Somebody that's not going to judge us. Somebody that's going to look at us as an equal. Okay? Because if we don't, what happens is we'll come to see, and everybody does it, we'll come to see that by keeping secrets and shutting people out, we just keep on we keep on perpetrating the abuse in our lives. And we just keep living in this deep, dark, and painful sharpness, shameful darkness. The more we keep it in our heads, the more it perpetrates in our heads, the more we stay stuck. So when I sat down with Greg for the first time in my life, there was a man with spiritual authority. He had modeled true spirituality for me. He actually let me for 2 hours, about an hour and a half, just rip on the church and God. And he was taking his notes. He never once gave me an ugly look. He never once grimaced. Every once in a while I go, understandable. At the end, all he said was this, is Randy, we have a lot of work to do. And I walked out of it just amazed. It's like, wow, this guy, he's for real. This part's right on my book because I don't know of Greg, and I know he is today, but when I wrote my book, I said, I don't know of Greg, who is my spiritual counselor, is aware of how much he did for me that night. In fact, I myself never realized how much he helped me until just this moment. And that moment was the minute I was writing this book. Because for the first time in my life, somebody really listened to me and heard my pain about what happened in the church and around God and all that. For the first time in my life, they not only listened to me, they didn't judge me, they validated how I felt. The first time in my life, somebody says, we're going to get you through this. We're going to help you get through this. You're going to be okay. Had his reaction been anything different than what it was, I can tell you right now that I probably would not have been writing my book. That was a make or break moment for me. When I walked into Betty Ford, hi Lane, when I walked into Betty Ford, God knew exactly who I needed in my life. I didn't know, but he did. And he placed the people from my intake counselor to my counselor to my spiritual counselor to my sponsor, Way Spiritual Day, to my co-sponsor. He passed away. Just blew a brain. That's stupid. That's my alcoholic brain. Roy Jarvis. He passed away not too long ago. He knew exactly the kind of people I needed in my life, and he put him there for a season and for a reason. So I know this journey to finding God, and a lot of people really struggle with God, and that's okay. I'm not telling you what you got to do. I would never tell you. I can just tell you what he's done for me, and it's been amazing. If you would have told me 14 years ago when I walked into Betty Ford, Randy, all these things are going to happen to you if you just stay sober. And the topper is you're going to be a pastor. Yeah, right. Okay. Whatever it is you're smoking, please let me have some, because it's got to be some pretty good stuff. If you would have told me 7 years ago when I walked into Destiny I'd be a pastor, I'd called you a liar. Okay. So just be prepared, because God can do mighty works, and God doesn't care what you did. All he cares about is today. Once God forgives you, it's done. You don't have to forgive yourself. Matter of fact, you can't. The highest, the high, the mightiest of might has already forgiven you. And I know in AA a lot we use the term, why don't you just forgive yourself? Why can't you forgive yourself? Well, you don't have a right to, number one. God has already forgiven you. So the question I would have to you, God has already forgiven you, the highest of highs. Why are you still holding on to stuff? Because that's all it is. You've been forgiven. Why are you holding on to what you're holding on to? Okay. So visit our website, courageoushealers.org. During the week, see what's going on there. I'm going to be updating it. I've met with a strategic planner. We've got some exciting things coming up in the next year. I promise you, I've got people I got to be held accountable to now. So that works for me. Next week, we're going to continue on chapter 6. I'll probably talk about a God of your understanding, a little bit about that. It's actually a really critical turn point that needs to be discussed. Okay. Remember about my life coaching. We, Kathy and I, my wife and I, we coach couples. We coach, do a lot of marriage counseling. We've got quite a, and I'm also now, I've become a SYMBIS facilitator, Save Your Marriage Before It Starts. It's a 20-page assessment. It's actually a really, really good thing. So we're offering that now. Hello, Kim. You bet, David. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it, man. So we're offering that as for people that are, even if you're newlywed, it's something that's going to really, or even if you're married like Kathy and I, it really is going to help you see where you're at in your personal life and how you line up with another person. It doesn't tell you shouldn't or shouldn't marry somebody, but anyways, but we do marry. If you want to know more about that, you can just hit me up on an instant message or send me a contact from my life coach page. So we work on marriage, addictions, abuse, inner healing, and spiritual counseling, all that. I do hourly rates, or we got 3-month, 6-month, and 12-month packages at a little bit discounted rate that you can do there. Our website is changeyourlifestorynow.com, changeyourlifestorynow.com. That's for the life coaching. Okay, if you just click on that, you can review some of the reviews we got from some of the people that we've worked with, and read a little bit more about the coaching and brief descriptions of the coaching practices. If you're interested in more information, just fill out the contact form. Once you hit that, send it, tell me what you want. If you want me to contact you back and what it is you want me to talk to you about. I usually respond in most cases, if not all, within 4 hours, usually a lot sooner than that. I've got one question for you on that. What are you waiting for? There's no day today. Start your new life. Okay, no day like today, start your new life. Remember my book, Healing the Wounded Child Within? Healing the Wounded Child Within. It's on Amazon and paperback, Kindle, and audiobook. Your choice. I got three modes there. I also have my, I have a workbook on there, the 7-Day Challenge, that real simple workbook that kind of goes along with the Healing the Wounded Child Within. I also have my 30-Day Devotional to Wholeness. It's a great devotional. You can read it by yourself or read it with your spouse. There's 3 contemplative questions at the end of every devotion. And the couples that read it together at night and do the work at the bottom, they said it's really, really changed their relationship. Okay. And if you'd like to make a one-time donation or be a monthly contributor to the Courageous Healers Foundation, not to life, but to the foundation, visit our website and click on the Donate Now tab. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, so all contributions are tax deductible. So we're always looking for support. So if you can do that, we really appreciate it. And every $10 a month from a lot of people really helps, goes a long way. Okay. Then this is brand new, part of the new curriculum we're going to do about some workshops, Courageous Healers in conjunction with Love Your Life Story. For life coaching service, we'll be launching a series of 4 workshops in 2020. The first of which will be held in March. It's going to be, I don't have the exact date, time, or location yet. I know the first one's going to be on communication. A lot of people have asked me to do that one. So we're going to do a communication workshop. It will be in March, definitely. And I'll have everything, should have everything posted on my website by the end of the month. I have to. It's part of what I got to do. So we'll do 4 this year and 6 to 8 the next year. And we'll just see how it goes. We're trying to really grow this foundation and what we're doing. Okay? Remember, nobody tells you they love you today. Randy does, but more importantly, God does. Everybody have a super, super blessed week. Talk to you next Monday, same time, same channel. Bye.